check out that. But seriously, check out this. This is an HP Pavilion P71297CB, hailing from about the year 2012. And this thing is a blast from the past. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys remember PCs very similar, if not this is exact kind of setup. If the specs on the side are to be believed, this thing would have come with a 27-inch LED monitor, 2nd gen AMD quad-core graphics, 8 gigs of RAM, and a AMD Radeon. That's not a dedicated GPU, that's just an APU, because the A10 5700 is an APU. And of course, it comes with free malware and Windows 7. But we'll have to see later if this 2TB hard drive still actually works or not. But as we take this random tape off the computer, I want to say that I got this at a Goodwill for like, what, 20 bucks? I think it was literally $19, $20, and peeled off that sticker. That sucks. I like these stickers, even though they're kind of cheesy. But they're the kind of thing that kind of keeps a computer original, you know? It's like, if you buy an old car, you want it to have everything original, you know, like car collectors, even if the paint on the car is completely screwed, they want the original paint, you know? Anyways, this thing came with a random laptop power adapter. I don't really know what's up with that, but maybe it goes to this thing. It doesn't have an HP logo on it. I'm gonna toss that to the side. I flip it to the other side where we might be able to get a look inside this computer. Anyways, one flathead screw later, we find ourselves able to take off this side panel and reveal the internals. Let's back it up away a little bit. And it looks like everything is in here. We still have the hard drive connected up, and that is a 2TB, so that should be the original hard drive this thing would have came with. It has the RAM and the CPU, of course. There is some dust in here, but not as much as I was expecting. I don't know what kind of motherboard this is, but it's mounted upside down, as you can see. The PCI slots are normally at the bottom, not the top of the system. This is a 300-watt power supply. And it appears we also have a multimedia optical drive up here. And of course, on the front of the system, we have a bunch of media storage stuff, expansion bays, Beats audio. I bet that sounds amazing, even though there isn't a sound card in here, so I guess they're just flexing the built-in audio on this craptastic motherboard. Mustard cables going absolutely everywhere. So yeah, this looks like it was in a relatively dust-free house, considering it's a decade old, and it looks pretty decent. I mean, I think my PC is dustier than this, so actually. So I ran into a little bit of a roadblock. If you see down there, I'm not sure if you do, but the only video outputs are VGA and DVI. I thought this thing came out in 2012, not 2004, but I guess we'll have to find an adapter or something, because I don't have any old monitors lying around. So I came up with a way better idea, which is to take this random AMD Radeon card that I've had sitting around for a million billion years and just toss it in here so that way we have an HDMI output. Whoever designed this case can go screw themselves, by the way. This is awful. Before I could get my accessories, it looks like Windows 7 is booting, so the hard drive must be good. We don't have graphics drivers, obviously, so everything is huge and not the right aspect ratio. And it looks like we're logging in too, so there must not be a password set, which is fine. But just looking at this immediately, that actually booted fairly fast for being a hard drive from a decade ago. And it looks like we have some games on here. Rogue Company, Fortnite. Someone was playing Fortnite on this APU. Or maybe there was a graphics card in there, they took it out before selling it, I have no idea. Yeah, I'm gonna have to connect this thing to Wi-Fi and get this graphics driver installed before I can do anything, but I'll see you guys in a bit. So it appears I've bought a very questionable computer indeed. I pulled down the front panel audio and the USB ports are just, they're non-existent anymore. And the back panel USB ports don't work either for some reason, so I'm trying to plug in my keyboard and mouse and it's just not working. I'll see if I can get it, but otherwise this might actually be a pretty useless computer if you can't control it. Not to mention I found this broken off USB connector in the back and it probably went to a keyboard or something, and I'm wondering if that like broke off the USB connectors, but I think the other ones would work. We've managed to get our mouse working. Keyboard works too. Sick. So I was able to find two USB ports on the very bottom of the motherboard bracket thing, like right there. And luckily they actually work. They are the only ports that work on this computer, but you know what? That's fine because we have control over the computer now. So we're gonna connect this to Wi-Fi and I guess kind of just explore this computer before we really do anything crazy with it. So give me a moment. Okay, so I've got the computer connected to the internet and they have managed to absolutely destroy this computer. I tried putting the taskbar on the bottom. I thought that was the only problem, but I literally don't know what it's doing. I'm trying to like make it smaller and it's not working, and there's just these randomly here, and I don't know what I just did, but I made it worse somehow, so that's fun. No, I didn't mean to do that. Windows Explorer crashed. You got Google Chrome. Let's see what they were looking at last when they were browsing the internet. And I'm gonna get some drivers going here too in a bit. Okay, it looks like it was just a new tab, and okay, luckily they've signed out of their Google accounts before throwing away their computer. Let's see about Steam. May not be connected. Stop running on Windows 7 in 2 days. Okay, so there is someone signed in here. We have Gorilla Tag and SoundPad, and neither of them are installed, so I don't imagine these were very hardcore gamers or anything. I'm confused. What was this computer used for? Actually, I might have a theory. I think this might have been like a public computer or like used at like someone's house they have guests over a lot. Because I think that this is, you know, the fact that there's Fortnite and Roblox running on it and they launch on startup for some reason indicates that there's like children around this computer, I think. And I think that also explains the absolutely destroyed USB ports, because no adult would do that. Maybe what I'm thinking is this was, you know, the parents' computer for a while, it was in their home and everything was dandy. And then, you know, they upgraded a couple years ago. They gave this computer to the kid and then they destroyed it. But based on like all the friggin' malware installed on this thing, and the fact that this computer is absolutely unusable, like I don't know what it's doing here. And like 4 programs just crashed right there, by the way. I think this indicates that they just either didn't clean it up or this was like, you know, a family computer. Something like that, I really don't know. There's a picture right here of someone's family. I'm not gonna open it for privacy reasons. But I don't know, I'll have to really explore everything else on this. Things going, I should install graphics drivers and see if I can speed this computer up a little bit. So hold please. Alright, so I went through, I got our graphics drivers as you can see, and I just uninstalled all the obvious malware on this thing. And I should have disabled Steam on startup, but you know, all the other stuff that was like, you know, hogging up all of our resources. Wonder where we're at now. We're using 1.6 gigs on startup. I mean, that's not great, but that's better than it was. I think it was using like 3 gigs of our 8 gigs on startup. So yeah, that's definitely a lot better. If we look here though, so we can see what our PC actually is. Processors are A10 5700, and we have 8 gigs of RAM, and yeah, our BIOS is from 2012, so that's probably when it was purchased, and it probably has had some updates since then, but you know what? And I'm sure our graphics card is in there too, but it's just not showing up. But anyways, like yeah, even from just like that small cleanup session, like it's already a lot faster. Although this is still, you know, a decade-old hard drive, so you gotta temper your expectations a bit. I went through the hard drive a bit, you know, and luckily there's nothing like offensive on here, obviously. I'm not obviously. The thing is though, is like if you're going to sell your computer, let alone throw it away into a public donation center, then I say get rid of any photos you don't like and you know, personal information. And, you know, there are definitely, you know, some family photos on here from a few years ago, and you know, some videos too, but it's literally just like benign families doing shit and going to events kind of stuff, so that's really nothing crazy. I did find it kind of funny though. It's like there's this thing called SideQuest that they tried to install on here, an Oculus setup. And as you saw on Steam, there was a VR game, so Lord knows what VR games the original owner thought this computer could run, but I guess more power to him that he tried. We also have this epic desktop wallpaper. I guess this is a screenshot from Fortnite. And yeah, aside from that though, there are definitely some things on this computer that I'm gonna have to explore more. If we launch Chrome again, see, look, it takes forever because it's running off of a hard drive. I think if you literally just put an SSD in this thing, it'd be twice as fast. But yeah, this is the stupid thing too. It's like they configured Chrome in the stupidest way. They have a manuals lookup as their main search engine. They can't even browse the web. They're literally just looking up manuals. What? How often do you look up manuals? So you set it as your default search engine. And also all these extensions on here are very fun. We got a password manager. Thank goodness they signed out of that. MSN, obviously, you know, nothing crazy with that. That's just Bing. Ad block. Okay, that's a good thing. Grammarly, that's non-offensive. Free manuals index. I want to remove this. That has literally no use to me. Nothing too much. It looks like we've just, you know, since we're not signed in, we can't see a whole lot. Which is good, you know. If you're gonna sell your computer, throw it away. Just sign out of everything, delete the data you don't want people to see, and there's really nothing wrong with it. I kind of wonder if Fortnite even runs on this thing, let alone this Radeon I have plugged into here. I don't know actually which one's powerful, the APU graphics or the Radeon, because the Radeon is weak. It has a gig of DDR3 VRAM, and you know, I think it has a base clock of like 500 megahertz. It's really not that impressive. But if we go through like all the programs here, there's nothing actually crazy in here. You know, we got Acrobat Reader, you know, all the stuff they installed, like Epic Games, the SideQuest, and the HP stuff. I uninstalled some of the HP stuff, but you know, the stuff that wasn't causing it to be completely slow was fine, obviously. And aside from that, luckily there's nothing too crazy on this computer. I might spruce this up, add an SSD, install Windows 11 on it, and see what it does, because it doesn't seem to be that bad in terms of like practical performance. Like the CPU inside this thing is actually kind of decent. I mean, for a mid-range CPU from a decade ago at least, it'd be blown out of the water by anything today. Alright, so I've been using this computer for a bit now, and I've gotta say I'm pretty surprised. I mean, I've just been like using this computer, and I kind of forgot I was just using the computer, because this is like just as fast as my video editing desktop for normal web browsing and stuff. Like this really isn't bad. Like, yeah, modern websites kind of slow down a bit, and YouTube videos, while they do play, you know, they have to load a little bit longer than you might have on a newer computer. But considering that this was like a mid-range budget PC from, you know, over a decade ago, it's really not that bad. I mean, consider that this thing, you know, came with the APU. It would have had some pretty decent graphics on board, although I can't take advantage of them due to the ancient video connectors. And this also came with 8 gigs of RAM at a time where, you know, 4 to 6 gigs of RAM was considered enough. And it's upgradable too. This is a full-sized motherboard, a full-sized case. You could put like, you know, a pretty decent graphics card in here if you really wanted to. I think if you like put a slightly better CPU in there, a GTX 1050 or something like that, you know, replace the thermal paste, make the case clean and everything, and, you know, add an SSD as well, you'd have yourself a pretty decent computer, I think. Like, this really isn't that bad. And I think that really shows, because this computer was used up until not too long ago, judging by the dates that some of the files were created. I'm guessing that this computer was probably thrown out as part of like an upgrade over Christmas, because it's a couple days after Christmas as I'm recording this. And I'm thinking that, you know, they just didn't see the use for this anymore now that they had a new computer, and fair enough to them. I mean, they held on to this thing for a long time. Most consumers these days don't even get, you know, 3 or 4 years out of their computers before seeing the need to upgrade, and that's quite unfortunate. I mean, apparently this thing can support like 32 gigs of RAM. I mean, literally just have this thing be a Minecraft server or like a media server. It's, you know, it has a fairly efficient CPU in it, and if you don't put a graphics card in, then it's really no problem. It's pretty quiet, and I imagine with the side panel on, it'd be basically silent. And the sheer transformation this computer made simply by updating the drivers, getting rid of the bloatware, and making sure the computer was configured correctly makes a huge difference in its usability. I think a lot of people throw out old computers like these because they think they're unusable and too slow, when they don't know about SSDs and, you know, debloating their systems, and instead they stick with the malware that was installed on them and don't see the full potential of these computers. It did get me thinking though about the history of like these kinds of computers, so to speak. You know, the really cheap budget computers you'd find in the thrift store and, you know, take home and see what it can do. This used to be a really popular style of video back in like 2017 or 2018. If you were in the tech scene then, you'd probably remember YouTubers like 32 megabytes, budget builds, random gaming in HD, and I don't know, the other ones. And even if you don't, you can look up these videos. They were extremely popular. People would take home Core 2 Duo systems from thrift stores and pawn shops and, you know, load up some mid-2000s graphics card and actually have a pretty good time. And I feel like I'm experiencing the same thing here, but it's just like a generation newer. This is the kind of computer that probably would have replaced some 2006 Core 2 Duo machine. And I can't really blame people for that. People would have wanted more performance, and this thing has a quad core compared to the dual core of a Core 2 Duo. And while I still encourage people to wipe the hard drives of their computers before selling or giving them away, I still think it serves as an interesting time capsule of sorts for these computers that still survive. I mean, even the bloatware and malware that was on this thing that made it utterly unusable is still interesting to me because it kind of shows exactly what this computer has been through. Same with the destroyed USB ports, as much as those might suck. So I was originally going to just end the video right there and give off a few final thoughts before closing the video, but I didn't feel like doing that, so instead I made an impulse purchase decision. I hit up some random guy on Facebook Marketplace, and now I'm the proud owner of a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. I don't know how many people were around for this, but it used to be insanely popular to take like an old Dell Optiplex or HP workstation, or you know, even something like this, a home desktop computer, and throw a GTX 1050 Ti in it and call it a gaming rig. Like seriously, this used to be like the definition of like a budget mid-range gaming rig back then, because that's what the 1050 Ti was. The 1060 series ended up being the most popular of the series though. But these videos became so like, you know, ubiquitous and popular, and people learned that, you know, it wasn't really that much better than saving up for a decent mid-range gaming PC, that it kind of just became pointless over time. I got this for about 80 bucks, and that's still not a great price, I think. But considering how the GPU market has been in general over the last few years, I really can't be complaining too much. This Asus model is nothing too special. It has a base clock of around 1300 megahertz, whatever was stock on the Founders Edition basically. 4 gigs of GDDR5, it supports DirectX 12, and basically all the modern features that you'd want in a graphics card. It's probably just not going to be quite as fast. I mean, this was a, you know, lower mid-range graphics card from 7 years ago, so you gotta temper your expectations a little bit. But I also learned that there's something really interesting you can do with this computer. If you have two 7000 series Radeon graphics cards, you can run them in Crossfire. And I don't mean like it has to be like a 7600 and another 7600. It can be any graphics card out of the 7000 series, and that's kind of like, I don't even process that, but it sounds really cool. And you know, as you learned, this thing has an APU with a 7000 series GPU and at the 7450, so theoretically we can run them in Crossfire with games that support it. So I guess we'll see how that uplifts performance. So yeah, we have the computer booted again, and I found this funny. Epic Games Launcher does not like the 7450. So I think that proves that, yes, the 7450 is weaker than the APU graphics. And as you can see, it says Radeon Dual Graphics and Multi-GPU Performance thing. We're going to go and see what that does. Because there is this one game that did not run very well on this computer. This was Nascency. It's a really good game, actually. Anyways, our graphics, we're going to be running this at 720p, full screen with anti-aliasing disabled. So we're just going to go into the last section we saved here. And it's a good section, too, because as you can see, it's not running too badly in this section with the, you know, enclosed area with minimal polygons. There's a ton of screen tearing, but I think VSync would actually hurt our performance. So I'm going to leave it disabled. Well, what you have to do is you have to go out into here, go through here, and now this is where like the real performance test comes, because there's like a ton of draw distance in this game, and you really have to be careful about what exactly you look at in these settings. So Portal 2 is a game that allegedly supports Crossfire, and we have MSI Afterburner open just in front, and you can see, sure as heck, we have the Radeon 7660D and the 7400. I don't know why I said it like that, and I've, you know, add a little bit of an overclock, but it really does not make a difference, I'm convinced. So I guess let's see if we have any options for that. Like advanced video, do we have Crossfire? Maybe not, who knows. Anyways, this thing seems to want to run at a pretty high resolution. That's pretty ballsy considering what it's trying to run on, but I guess let's do a new game. Alright, so right off the bat, we're just listening to Wheatley's monologue as we're starting the game of Portal 2. And it's running pretty well. I'd say it's like 30 to 45 FPS, you know, perfectly playable for this kind of game. And it's running on really decent settings. So I think we'll get to a part where that's not a cutscene and then continue on from there. So I quickly went through and disabled Crossfire, and yeah, Crossfire being on actually does make a difference. I say the frame rate is significantly lower now, like from 45 FPS to 25 to 30 maybe, and it's choppier. There isn't any tearing though, so that's good. Forgot to E? Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna play this a little bit, then I think we'll see if we can get the 1050 Ti to work. So it's time to put the 1050 Ti in, and well, I've tried this before, okay? Here's the thing, is that this GPU is brand new. It literally came in the box. This thing was apparently old stock supply from an old, I don't know, store or something like that. I can't remember the story, but it looks brand new. I think it is brand new. And I put it in here and it doesn't work. Well, it does work, but I'll show you what happens. If I turn on the computer, the graphics card fans spin up and it does post. So yeah, we get the splash screen, but then it keeps making this series of beeps, very longly spaced apart, and when it boots into Windows, it's just literally all garbled. It doesn't make any sense, and as you can see, it's taking a really, really long time to post, even though there's no reason it should. So 15 million years later, we do get past the splash screen, and it looks like it's starting up pretty normally. What else thinking that there's no drivers installed. It's probably just running at the wrong resolution and isn't displaying correctly, but soon after this, and that happens, and I have not been able to fix this so far. And I was thinking that you just installed the new drivers and everything's dandy, but you can't do that if the computer's utterly unusable. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're probably thinking, dude, this was an RMA dud from the factory that was returned, and that's the reason it's brand new in the box. But no, actually, I tried this in my video editing computer and it worked just fine and had no artifacting or anything like that. So I don't really know what's up. I think the only thing I have left to try is to get something that has a VGA port connected to the integrated graphics, install the drivers, and see if I can find a BIOS for this thing, because HP's website doesn't have anything for this computer, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because usually they tend to have that kind of stuff, but I guess not for this one. Okay. So it's been several days now, and I haven't been able to get anything to work. This computer just does not want to boot with the GTX 1050 at all. I got a VGA cable, it's hooked up back here, and it'll display an image through the integrated graphics if there's no GPU in the PCIe slot. But if there is one, then it tries to boot off the graphics card and won't display anything through the onboard GPU, which sucks. And the last time I tried this, it wouldn't even boot into Windows. It just hangs here forever. Well, it doesn't hang here. It goes to a black screen and then hangs there infinitely. So not really much better when you think of it. But it basically means that I don't think I'm gonna be able to get this to work, unfortunately. I might try to see if I can find more tips online or something like that, but unfortunately this is probably where we're gonna have to end the video for now. But thank all of you lovely people for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.